The Israel-Gaza war has come to an end, at least for now. And as is the case in every war, there are losers here as well. There are those losers who attacked the Jews, those losers who funded terror organizations against Israel, losers who conspired against Israel, and those losers who thought they could capitalize upon this war. And among them, the list of the biggest losers is eye-opening for Israel and the world. Hi, and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Shubhangi, and in this video, I will tell you about the 5 biggest losers in the Israel-Hamas war. Let's begin. The Israel-Gaza war, which lasted 11 days, came to a temporary halt with a ceasefire being agreed upon by both Israel and Hamas. Needless to say, Israel has emerged as the numero uno winner in the aftermath of the recent fighting between the Israel Defense Forces and Hamas. Israel has agreed to a ceasefire from a position of strength, and rest assured, will resume bombing the living daylights out of Hamas if the Palestinian militant group decides to take even one aggressive step against the Jewish nation. While Israel has undoubtedly emerged as the sole winner of the recent conflict in the Middle East, there are also some giants the Jewish nation has slain alongside Hamas. The sudden ceasefire between Israel and Palestine has thrown up at least 5 big losers in descending order of the embarrassment faced. Here are the 5 losers. Hamas. The Palestinian terrorist group, which Israel and the US call a terrorist organization waging Islamic jihad against the Jewish people, has been handed the biggest loss in a very long time by Israel. Hamas, since the beginning of the 11-day war, was on the back foot. Hamas started the conflict by firing rockets into Israel and its capital city, Tel Aviv, thus targeting ordinary and innocent citizens. So Israel responded with all its might and punishingly pounded the terror organization. Hamas, throughout the conflict, was on the edge. It still is, as a matter of fact. It has expended a significant chunk of its human resources and foot soldiers, while its military assets have been bombed and destroyed to rubble. Hamas's metro tunnel network, its weaponry, its reputation, and above all, its goals stand obliterated. The clock has been turned back by many years on Hamas due to the damage inflicted upon it by the IDF. What's worse, the current ceasefire is a very fragile one. If Hamas takes one wrong step, Israel will have the right to break the ceasefire and exterminate the organization as a whole. Iran. The Shiite nation of Iran is the second biggest loser which has emerged out of the 11-day war between Israel and Hamas. Iran was banking on Hamas in order to get sanctions imposed upon it by the United States dropped. The plan was to use the hostilities in order to portray Israel as the bad guy and grow even closer to the Biden administration. However, Iran could achieve not even one goal it was aiming for. Yet, being the despotic country that it is, Iran declared victory over its Zionist enemy and even congratulated Hamas for the same, only in order to save face domestically. Not only has Iran's front organization in Gaza been minced by Israel, but the United States too has once again tilted towards the Jewish nation. Iran was hoping that it could further sour ties between the US and Israel by leveraging Tel Aviv's hostilities with Hamas. However, the Biden administration took a rather drastic turn in favor of Israel, thus leaving Tehran in the lurch. Furthermore, the cost of the Biden administration embracing Israel once again will be felt by Iran to an extent it would have never imagined. The nuclear deal revival now seems a distant dream for Tehran, as Joe Biden can under no circumstances betray and antagonize Israel one more time. The Biden administration. President Joe Biden was trying to revive the Iran nuclear deal at the cost of Israel. But now, Joe Biden has been forced to side with Israel, and this has once again made it impossible for his administration to revive the Obama-era nuclear deal with Iran. Joe Biden has been forced to resort to a course correction. By standing in support of Israel, Biden has followed yet another foreign policy pivot of former President Donald Trump. So the joke is really on him and his administration, as they have been proven wrong on yet another foreign policy count. Domestically, Biden faces the threat of being ostracized by far-left Democrat leaders for his newfound pro-Israel stance. Turkey was using Hamas in order to further its own regional supremacy agenda. Hamas leaders were receiving Turkish patronage. Turkey also proved to be a safe haven for Hamas leaders. The fact that Turkey provides shelter to Hamas leaders is also a big point of contention between Tel Aviv and Ankara. Essentially, Turkey is rather unapologetic with regards to its support to Hamas. Turkey has some serious interests in Gaza. By supporting Hamas, Turkey was eyeing strategic influence over the Gaza Strip, which, although faces a land-air-sea blockade by Israel, still happens to lie just next to the eastern Mediterranean Sea. And we all know how Turkey has been eyeing the eastern Mediterranean for itself. It wants to link Gaza by sea for hurting Israel's interests in the eastern Mediterranean and avoiding the sheer isolation being caused by Israel's East Med pipeline project. Those dreams now stand shattered. China, being the foolish nation ruled by a despot that it is, was convinced that Iran and Hamas could register a victory over Israel this time around. Imagine the humiliation China faced when it realized that Israel was the unquestionable victor of the recent conflict in Gaza. In fact, China even resorted to its pro-Palestine and anti-Zionist propaganda via state media channels, thus making its stand on the hostilities amply clear. China believed that Israel and the United States would be cornered. Obviously, that did not happen. Hamas has been incapacitated for a long time, and China has lost face in the Middle East, further being exposed as an anti-Israel power. Finally, China has been caught red-handed doing Iran's bidding in the region, to the extent that it has been taking a rather unnatural anti-Israel stand even at the United Nations. So now that China has dropped the garb of neutrality in the Middle East, Arab powers and Israel can clearly jeopardize China's business interests here. No good news for Xi Jinping. Israel has not just defeated Hamas, but has also taken down many other enemies of the Jewish people this time around.